one of the top industries that we are now developing in Brno. So thank you for that. And here it's your microphone and welcome on the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, yeah, I've been working with the German Airspace Center for 25 years in Earth observation, so coming back to Earth. But actually some 10 years ago, I and many other people started to get concerned how we use actually something very earthy, the internet, and how we are reliant in Europe on actually overseas hyperscalers that help us navigate that information source. And we got concerned and thought, okay, what can we do in Europe to get a hand on the internet and maybe reclaim it back? So I will use the next 25, 30 minutes to share with you some thoughts of this open web search initiative that is heavily supported also here from Czechia, also from IT4I colleagues. But let's start from the beginning. So orientation relates with power and control. So in the older time, whoever controlled the navigation of a ship or knew where resources were could control things in an economic way, a strategic way, military way. And this holds true also for the digital sphere. Whereas the physical sphere is solved, the digital sphere, I think, is not solved. And that's why Europe needs a program like Galileo or like Copernicus that we've put up for sovereignty and monitoring and navigating the Earth, also for the digital sphere. And why does Europe need such a independent system? Well, the current setup, I mean, it's changing recently also, but let's say the classic web search is based on so-called web indices. So basically copies of the web that are structured and that they can be used for searching and for querying. And there are four major web indices of that kind available, two governed by commercial interests and two others governed under let's say, jurisdictions that we cannot control and are state controlled. And yeah, but the web is an important and key resource for our research and for many other things, for economy, for society, for culture, for many things. So Europe needs access to this because we're currently fully dependent on US American search systems. And such an own capacity would contribute significantly to digital sovereignty in Europe. And also with the current geopolitical developments, we see that this is coming more and more necessary. And yeah, so current classical web search, so just if you look at the search bar where we punch in our queries, that's closed and or opaque internet search governed by economic interests. And we should move to an open and transparent way of searching and analyzing the web and using the web data as a resource. So web search is a critical infrastructure and currently managed by an oligopoly. And as it is so important for society and for our well-being, we have to change this. And because we're, as I mentioned, missing these sovereignty, we also have a reduced user experience because we only have a limited choice of the searches and limited innovation potential. Just recently, we've heard that Bing, who offered also an API to their search by Microsoft, is closing that down. So many meta search engines that have been using Bing were just confronted with the fact some months ago that they were going to, they were changing the prices by 1,000%, so a factor of 10, increasing the prices. And now just the past days, they said they're going to close it down completely. So there we see that we are totally dependent on things. And of course, also web data, as we heard also this morning by Jan Hajic, drives also our AI systems, not only for training, but also for retrieval augmented generation. That's also a very important aspect, so that we combine AI language models as interfaces to current, up-to-date, and precise retrieval activities. So what we've done, actually, we've convinced the Commission to put something like this up into the Horizon, and then many teams applied into the Horizon Europe program, and the Open Web Search.eu team won, and since 2.5 years, so relatively short time, we've been piloting such an infrastructure to generate public and open web index for the web, and thus starting to build a federated open web data infrastructure as the basis for web search, but also for web analytics, as well as for AI systems in support in Europe, in order to empower European researchers and innovators, business actors to build their own services. Of course, sovereignty was mentioned, but these RAG systems are important, and to be able to run this on European jurisdiction. And we are not suggesting to build a new infrastructure for that, but use existing cloud and data centers and also HPC centers to do that. And we've been piloting this, and we are just about to open this up publicly now for experimental use. This is the core team. So we have research players, we have compute and infrastructure providers, NGOs, and a telecom provider, A1, also to work on some pilot use cases there. And we also have support from third parties. So we are also inviting third parties to use that infrastructure, to expand that infrastructure. So we are also onboarding 2 new compute centers on this, and basically this may scale also further. But although it's called Open Web Search is only one element of what you can do with such an infrastructure and web index. You can do all sorts of other services if you have, let's say, the structured copy of the internet available at your disposal. You can support mobility services, AI and language models was mentioned, but also science and research activities can be supported. Online news monitoring, web statistics, e-commerce, price comparison portals, cybersecurity, fake news detection, Industry 4.0 can be supported. Internet of Things, business analytics, business intelligence, digital humanities can be supported. Geospatial analysis and mapping and big Earth data processing. All this can go in hand with large amounts of web data that are at your disposal. And we inspire and encourage Europe to think beyond just looking at the hyperscalers as the rabbit cornered by the snake and say, well, no, there's nothing we can do. Yes, we can, and we have to. And this is what we can do with this. So this is a conceptual sketch. The idea is to use existing computing centers across the Union to build that up. And we've just now 7 of these nodes in here, but we are ready to scale. And we invite people to join us. And it's basically the idea, the web is at exabyte scale. So it's the idea to collect that into then the petabyte scale, and then slice it into terabytes. And then this is what the Open Web Index and Open Web Data Infrastructure does. And then people can access it, parts of it, and then have their own services to build, then reduce it to the users and reduce it for their search. As we heard this morning, for of course training foundation models, you need the petabyte part, and of course to do that, but also to filter out things that are spam or malicious content that you don't need. You have to have your means. And if every innovator does that by him or herself all over and over again, we will not scale. It will not work. And Europe is different to the US or to China. We have multiple languages, multiple also digital spaces, economic spheres. And that's something we have to reflect and keep in mind. And that's why we encourage to build this cooperative infrastructure. So these are the core elements of our setting. So we have this part where with the heavy lifting, the crawling and analysis and pre-processing is being done from scouting the web, mapping the web in a frontier crawler, and then harvesting or fetching the documents, and then producing metadata and content analysis, and then put that into the daily index charts and make them available. And then applications can be built on. Either we do some demos, I will just come to that in a minute, but people can also do it by themselves, and they can access it and then build their own services. For now, it's a pilot infrastructure, but if we're now in the transition to make it sustainable, we are talking to several AI factories and HPC centers across Europe, and IT4I is among those, as well as the Lumi AI factory, also in Germany, and others that want to get hold of that data and want to sustain it and make it accessible under European jurisdiction, etc. And that's why it's so interesting to also be here to discuss things and to see how this infrastructure then can be maintained and sustained in the future. Just some tech, I'll try to go through that quickly. So currently we are just working on just a few virtual machines. We are accessing 100 million URLs per day for our frontier, produce up to 200 terabyte text only data per month, which is about 3 to 5 terabytes per data center a day. And currently it's mainly CPU bound, but we are also opening up a GPU pipeline. We cannot pass everything through the GPU pipeline, but we need that for some AI embeddings, computation, etc. But parts of it will be also enriched there. And yeah, currently our index is on the order of, let's say, 20 times small, smaller than a commercial index, but still there's room to improve, of course, but it's just a pilot, it's a demonstrator. Excuse me. And we're just using text. Of course, if we were to go to use imagery or video or audio, it would be much larger, of course. This is the current setup. As I said, we have a frontier crawler that's located at CERN that scouts the web and looks for the URLs and does a first pre-analysis, and then the fetchers collect the content, store it, and that's being then further processed. And we are collecting metadata from the websites that are, for example, interesting to enrich OpenStreetMap or open map services. Maybe some of you are using Google Maps, which is kind of a geospatial search engine in itself. And that's exactly what some of our partners, in this case Marina, de-Googled Android provider in France, is using to offer also additional web information on their map solution. We analyze the maps, the websites with a pipeline called ResiliPipe to check for web content, to assign certain genres and thematic elements, etc. And that's basically done on batch computing on HPC systems. So that's an advantage and disadvantage at the same time. We have huge compute power available, but only at a time. So not on stream compute, and that's also needed in the future. And as I mentioned, also the GPUs are also being prepared. The GPU pipeline is prepared for vector embeddings that are attached to the index sites, so they are AI ready. This is just a quick, don't read everything. It's just a quick slide to show that we're using an automation airflow system here, also the good part built here in Czechia, Alexis, that runs our basic storage, operators basic storage, where all the raw data comes in, and then we go through the pipelines and then go to an iROD instance also that federates our infrastructure across the different computing center for storage and for delivery. And to access the system, there is a command line tool that you can implement on your machine. It's Linux based basically, and you can use this Overlix tool then to interact with that web index and web data repository to filter down certain parts and download it and get it down to your machine. And that's important so that there's easy access to this vast amount of data that you probably not want to download all, and it's also difficult to download all. But that's the idea, to make parts of it available, and this overleaks tool is the thing to do. This is how our dashboard, excuse me, currently looks. You can access it under openwebindex.eu, so it's beta. You have to expect bugs, but it's where we're getting close to 1 petabyte of raw data, and there you can interact with this overleaks tool and download parts of that index. And again, it's a prototype, but we consider it worthwhile for Europe to carry on with such an activity and reclaim the web, and also on accessing the web, generate some sovereignty. I'll just now go through a few applications. We have built this modular search engine application builder, so a tool that allows you to access the parts of the certain index shards, and then build your own subcorpus, subindex, and then query this. We also, so it's basically the idea is you access part of the index as the CIF is the main index file and some metadata file, and then you get it into this core element of this mosaic builder, and then you have your own interfaces, any kind of service or web interface to search it, and this is being then done with a classical open source index here. And this is just a quick view for the developers, how they can filter down certain parts of the web and of the index, and then to build their own search engine. All this is experimental and starting off, so this is just starting, but the basics are there, and it works, and so it can be built and further refined. There's also a RAG, retrieval augmented generation pipeline there that combines this mosaic thing also with GenAI, so that you have conversational search as an interface to these index shards. And this is how it then looks. It's also just a very rough prototype, but the teams are working to refine this. There is a science search prototype that's built by my colleagues at DLR, so where they combine classical sources of scientific artifacts, OpenAlex or our internal geoservices, and build the knowledge graph from that, and combine it with data from our index, and that can be interfaced then with a chat interface, and so classical RAG approach, so retrieval augmented generation, to allow scientists to interact with different data sources at the same time. A similar experiment is being done at CSC in Finland currently, where they are working to enrich their research.fi portal with such web-based and web-sourced documents, and also there allow an LLM to interface with this. So this is just in the making, and loads of these things can be done now with this infrastructure in the back. But before, that could not be done because it was not available. Each and every organization would have had to do that on their own. Also, the colleagues at A1 are working on this local and privacy preserving personalized recommender system, in this case for restaurants in Ljubljana, where they have open web index elements, then also prepared in a data set and train a recommender. And on the smartphone, they have their natural query then processed and query that recommender system, and to allow the searching for cities or for certain restaurant types, etc., and then get a local recommendation for restaurants, and then use a very small, just 3 billion parameter models to do that. So just to show you a few applications that can be done with an index, but you saw that funnel of things that can be done. Here's just 3-4 of them. Now coming to the end, and actually also I actually dug in my archives and found that slide here that I've produced actually some 7 years ago. And also back at that time, we thought, well, there's this European Open Science Cloud coming up, and the EOS coming up. Why can't we make this open web search actually part of this exercise? Because there's all these predictions, what data would be there, etc. And actually, the web index, probably in the around 100 or even more petabytes of data is probably a huge one. But that question was there some 7 years ago, and I would suggest let's try and see what we can do together with this Open Web Search Initiative and the EOSC initiative and let's say ecosystem. And what would I suggest, or what would I see? How could these initiatives join forces? So of course, explore synergies technically and organizationally, exchange on how to set up and govern such a data intensive infrastructure across Europe. We could share capacities, storage, compute, possibly also make this open web index also part of the EOSC services, or at least roll out some local data sets. So it doesn't make sense that if all countries have all data everywhere, but if the, let's say, Scandinavian web would be somewhere on the Scandinavian compute centers, or let's say the Czech web would be somewhere on the Czech language, would be somewhere on the Czech compute centers, it would make sense. And so we could, also technically divide that task. And complement scientific data with general web text corpora. It seems to be also important for analyzing what's going on in the web, enabling search, foresight, training, scientific language models, RAG, etc., and exchange on analytics and search strategies across such large-scale data sets. And probably there's many more activities. So to conclude, Europe needs to cooperate across domains and communities to regain sovereignty in using and accessing the web at scale. We can punch in a search bar anywhere and just open 1 or 2 or 10 or 100 URLs. But to use the web as a whole, we need to cooperate. So as this community, we are looking for partners to host and this distributed web index. We want to extend the business and service models of this open web data infrastructure. We want to develop new search and retrieval paradigms and content analysis algorithms. We are looking partners for that. And we're looking for support and partners to shape the governance and the overall sustainability of this open search ecosystem. And with that, I would like to close my talk. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any, and if I can. And I'm here up until tomorrow, so we can hope to be in touch. And I make you aware of 2 events. We were invited by the European Commission to have a session at the Next Generation Internet Forum to be held on June 20th in Brussels. And we have this official web index launch event, online event on June 6th. That you may join, and there we will expose you once again to the aspects of the open web search infrastructure and how it may be used. And happy to discuss the future of this. And there are some flyers out there, an economy study that we did, how Europe would benefit economically on such a thing. And there's another flyer out there. You find it somewhere on the overall setup. And with that, I would like to close my talk, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, so thank you very much. And as usual, questions from the audience. Or Slido.
Yes, we have a question on Slido. Do you think that Open Web Index could or should be used to build the catalog of the EOSC Federation?
Yes, why not? I mean, this index stands ready, and also these technologies stand ready to absorb any type of web compatible data. So we're discussing also at the Earth Observation Center at DLR also how to bring our Earth observation catalog into this system and to complement it. So yes, of course, we are ready to do that and explore that.
Thank you. Other question, Slido or in the room? You have another one at Slido,
Yes,
please.
we have one more. So when am I going to be able to use this as a personal search engine, and how it will compare to performance of Google or Bing?
Yeah, so it's first very rudimentary front ends that we have generated. So knowing that the web is at the exabyte scale, and at the end you're interested in a few either lines of recommended websites, there's a lot to be filtered, and our tests and things show. Although we are already kicking out all the malignant content and all the adult content at the moment, we still find a lot of trash out there. And so really to get something meaningful, it's difficult, and we are doing these first tests, and we are actually not there to build the final search engine, but others may do. We're showing examples. So it's probably still some time before you will find your local or personal privacy preserving or whatever search engines are built on that. But we are already talking to Ecosia, for example. We're talking to Quant. We're talking to MetaGear in Germany, who are now being kicked out of Bing. And we've been engaging with them already for quite some time. And they're starting to build get parts of our data and build their own services. So it's still a while, some time down the road, but we're getting there. And this is a big undertaking. So don't expect this to be easy and fast. And we want to do it right. And because you only get people once to try this or twice, and it should be nice and a good user experience before people switch.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? If not, I have maybe one, maybe comment. You mentioned starting your presentation, orientation means power plus control. How oriented you are in EOSC, because you are coming a little bit from different field.
Well, I'm not so oriented within EOSC, but that's why it was very interesting to learn this morning where things are in state of play, in state of discussions, and I'm impressed how big this undertaking is. And but I understand also that there's quite some governance issues and quite some also, let's say, coherence issues, and so we are much smaller and just really a new kid on the block, but maybe there's still some synergies to be explored. So I'm still learning on the EOSC. Of course, I'm talking to the national data research infrastructure people here and there, but for me it's new. I'm not an expert on EOSC.
Okay, thank you very much.
There was
oh, yeah,
one more
we
question?
have. Okay, Zdeňka, go for it.
Thank you. If I may, one more question. Zdenka Dudová, CISNET and Masaryk University. I'm not really familiar in this world, so my question maybe seems to be silly, but I'm thinking when you are going through the whole internet and using these crawlers or some kind of automatized way, when you bump on license, you probably follow what is written in the license, but sometimes, maybe mostly, there are no licenses or no information how you can reuse the data or how you how to use the web page or whatever. How you handle this not licensing, having licenses on the pages, or how you?
Well, it's of course there's a tricky thing, but there are tools for that. There's the so-called robots.txt document that's on web servers typically, that indicates on what possibly by the owners of the website what could be done with the website. And they are standardized machine readable elements in there, And we follow that strictly. So we are very polite in a sense on this in order to not be offensive towards people. We also search for license documents that have plain text and license. And we have a dedicated index called legal index. It's a specific index that collects all the imprints. In Germany, we have to have imprints on all web pages, but also license texts, etc., that are also there. So that can be also taken. But then, of course, we also have to take discussions on general aspects on how to be legally compliant with what we're doing, in particular reflecting copyrights. In the US, there is no such thing. They can just do anything with the web data, more or less. And here in Europe, as we discussed also with Jan this morning, we have some issues, but we want to be compliant, but also the over-regulation that's currently in the situation in Europe somehow probably has to be changed, and we have to discuss that. Because if we try to regulate overseas players, and by that over-regulate and stop us from innovating and stop us Europeans from using and doing things, that's not what the regulator intended, I guess. And that's why we are in this important discussion. So yes, we do what we can, machine readable and human readable, plus having a lot of lawyers and legal expert discussions in all this, and to be as compliant as we can.
Okay. So thank you once again.